Maki and Mahito, two soul manipulators, the restricted and the free. But what would happen if these two Jujutsu Kaisen prodigies with overwhelming potential came to blows? Well, in today's video, that's exactly what we'll find out. What's up guys, Restless Gambly here. And in today's video, we're finally revisiting Jujutsu Kaisen vs. Battles. As the title and thumbnail suggests, we'll be going over what would happen if Maki and Mahito fought to the death. So like always, make sure to like, subscribe, and watch it to the end. Mahito was introduced in chapter 16 with an aura that set him apart from the disaster cursed spirits introduced before him. 2 to 3 chapters later, we see a glimpse of his disturbing power, having disfigured 3 teenagers inside a movie theater. In chapter 20, we actually get a reason for Mahito's natural strength. The other disaster cursed spirits in Hanami, Jogo, and Dagon were all born from the fear of their elemental disasters, the earth, forest, and sea. Mahito, however, is born from the hatred spewed between people. Being born from this premise naturally gave Mahito amazing attributes, and throughout the series, Mahito grows, evolves, and becomes stronger as a result of many battles. But narrative wanking aside, let's go into our first stat, that being strength. As to emphasize the growing strength of Mahito throughout the series, I'll compare 3 showings of Mahito for this stat. So for this, we'll start in his fight with Nanami and Yuji. During the beginning of the fight, he was holding his own for the most part, being able to clash with Yuji and Nanami. But when he tried to use his AoE attacks against the 2 sorcerers, you can clearly see that they do absolutely no damage. So at that moment, you could say that he was a little bit relative to Yuji and Nanami under certain circumstances. I say this because just earlier, had Yuji not been the vessel for Sukuna, Mahito would have killed him. The second showing of Mahito's strength is at the beginning of his fight with Yuji in Shibuya. Right off the bat, Mahito uses soul multiplicity and body repel against Yuji, making him stay in place, holding the attack back. Out of nowhere, Mahito appears inside of whatever you want to call this with a soul reinforced punch to Yuji's face. Unironically, this attack literally scarred Yuji for life. Mahito even said that had he used more force, he would have split Yuji's skull, implying one-shot capability from the curse himself. Mahito, after that crazy punch, literally does not get a chance to let off a direct hit until he packs an Obara. Yuji starts crying, and Mahito, after hyping himself up like he's Piccolo from TFS, runs to Yuji and hits a black flash. I'm sorry, we gotta get backtracked a little because I have to read this statement. The sparks of black do not choose who to bless. Oh my god, I'm about to go. Mahito hits a black flash and Yuji bounces around like a basketball. Mahito continues with a crazy ass combo and it's like so brutal, bro, like blood everywhere, and Yuji just lies thereafter. Mahito is actually about to kill him with a crab hand and Yuji is saved. Now, when Todo pulls up, Mahito has to handle a 2v1. Other than just using hacks, this man does another black flash, this time against Todo. Sadly, this doesn't do the job because of Todo's durability reinforcement. But then, he transforms and becomes true Mahito. Mahito's instant spirit body of distorted killing, such a stupid name. This form was actually stated to be from a binding vow that boosted his physical stats by 200% in exchange for him not being able to transfigure himself. This in turn means, when in this form, Mahito is indeed susceptible to physical attacks. But what's worth noting is the fact that Yuji hit him with a black flash right before he transformed. Had Yuji not hit that black flash, it's stated that Yuji would have definitely been deleted by Mahito. In speed, Mahito is surprisingly underrated. Now, I won't go too much into depth with the 2v1 against Nanami and Yuji, but what we can get here is that as early as that arc, Mahito easily scaled relative to Nanami and Yuji in speed. But skipping to Shibuya now, I want to go over one specific circumstantial feat that Mahito got off, and that was dodging Gojo's attack. I said circumstantial because he had a lot of people around him to get this feat off, and you can easily replace those people with transfigured humans. But onto some actual consistent feats, at the beginning of his 2v1 with Yuji and Todo, he was easily holding them off, reacting to their attacks and vice versa for them. But then Mahito uses an all or nothing domain expansion of 0.2 seconds. The narrator said that Todo was fast enough to let off a simple domain. Yuji was faster than that, already running to Mahito. But before both of them, the fastest of the 3 was Mahito, who had let off his domain and used his curse technique in 0.2 seconds. And once again, when transformed, Mahito was supposed to be at 200% of his physical capabilities. Now, clearly that wasn't the case in the fight with Yuji, as he could easily tag him. However, like we said before, this is probably just due to the fact that Yuji hit a black flash right before the transformation. Mahito's durability is an insanely weird thing to go over. I say this because attacks that don't target his soul or attacks from anyone who doesn't know the shape of his soul is literally useless against him. This is because of his use of Idol Transfiguration on himself to shape his soul back to the way it was before. One of the attacks that we actually got to see affect Mahito before he transfigured himself was Nanami's ratio technique. I mean, bro, Nanami's strong and all, but like, look at the ratio technique against Dagon. But regardless, this doesn't do anything to him because he can transfigure himself. But when he's fighting someone who actually attacks his soul or someone who literally counters him, say Yuji for example, he actually does damage to Mahito. Yuji as early as chapter 28 headbutts this man like 3 times and Mahito is injured. Then we go to around chapter 123, Nobara gets 1 resonance on Mahito and Blood is stood there, injured and stunned. Yuji gets a brutal ass combo off the next chapter and it's Mahito's endurance that allows him to continue fighting, using his trickery to split into different miniature versions of himself to get away from Yuji's might. In fact, when Mahito's double pulls up on Yuji, he literally gets 1 shot and thrown out the way. But this stat is also boosted in his true form and we actually get to see it in action unlike speed and strength. Yuji tries to get a hit off on true form Mahito and literally nothing happens. Yuji even comments that Mahito's durability is even greater than Choso when he reinforced his with blood. The final and best stat for Mahito is hacks. Mahito is literally what you would call carried by hacks. His physical strength doesn't matter for the most part because of his hacks. His durability? What's durability when you got Mahito's hacks? The stat that truly goes hand in hand with Mahito's hacks, however, are his speed. The hacks in question is Idol Transfiguration. This is Mahito's form of soul manipulation. When he comes into contact with you, he can transfigure your soul however he sees fit. There were exceptions to this rule, like Nanami who was unconsciously protecting his soul with cursed energy, and Yuji who shared a soul with Sukuna, so Mahito had no chance using his hacks there. Like I said earlier, he uses this to transfigure his own soul to counteract physical damage dealt to him. The only weakness is the fact that if you attack his soul, you will bypass his durability. But with all that said, I've scaled Mahito, and now it's time for me to scale Maki. When scaling Maki, I want to go over in detail the versions of her after her awakening post Shibuya. I mean, before her awakening, she didn't even scale above Goodwill Yuji, as Hanami themselves said that Yuji was more agile than her, damaging them consistently, something Maki could not do. So let's talk about her strength. Our first stat. At the beginning of chapter 149, we see the aftermath of pre-awakened Maki versus Ogi, her own father. Sadly, she got low diff. Mai sacrifices herself and strengthens the heavenly restriction Maki has. She exits the chamber and literally one-shots Ogi. Now, if you want to attribute this to a new sword, by all means, but that still doesn't negate the fact that she's exponentially stronger than she was just before. She then went on to showcase this new level of power, deleting the entire Zenin clan. The thing most noteworthy in this fight was the fact that without her sword, Maki one-tapped Naoya. Now, after this, Maki gets another power-up during her time in the Sakurajima colony, and this buff is like crazy. It amped her weapon's ability, but I'll save that for the hack section. In speed, bruh, Maki is crazy. So upon her first power-up, before, Ogi was fighting at least on par with Maki. After though, he couldn't even react to Maki's slash. Naoya, moving at top speed, runs towards Maki from behind. Maki turns around before he can reach her and punches the man once. Boom, the fight is done. We skip to Sakurajima and Naoya got reincarnated. What we want to focus on is this sequence of events. Cursed Naoya runs away to build up speed. He does just that, boosts towards Maki and blitzes her. This means that a Maki who was on the same level as a live Naoya is slower than Cursed Naoya. Maki awakens once more and now Cursed Naoya is rage quitting. He can't even touch Maki. This all means that Maki is faster than Cursed Naoya, who was faster than Maki before her awakening, who was on the same level as Naoya when he was alive. Why I emphasize this will come into play later, but it's safe to say that Maki's speed is insane. Maki's durability and even more important, endurance is crazy. The earliest emphasis of this is the fact that during the entire Zenin clan massacre, she was nerfed because of the wounds she suffered from her father just before. In Sakurajima, while this is clearly a hacks, I gotta talk about this for endurance too. She has a vague level of regeneration. She says that she can heal the injuries she sustained from Naoya in 5 minutes. Those injuries, mind you, came from an attack moving at Mach 3. The fact that she didn't just automatically die was a good feat in itself, but right after, she gets up and kicks him away. But let's not waste our time on the stat when clearly, if anything, Mahito is not punching or kicking. Maki's hacks. Well, being a heavenly restriction user, by default she was born with enhanced strength, speed, and durability. She's blessed with a level of regeneration on top of that. Since she has zero curse energy, domain expansions don't work on her if she doesn't allow it. During her Sakurajima fight, she unlocked the ability to see souls. Why this is important for her specifically is the fact that her weapon, Mai, could only be utilized to its max potential once she could perceive souls. Now, rather than cutting based on durability and strength, she can bypass any durability, attacking the soul directly. There might be more stuff that I'm forgetting, but I just decided to list out everything that was relevant for the time being. So with both these fighters scaled, the question still stands. Would Maki and her heavenly restrictions give her the edge, or would Mahito's hacks overwhelm her? Well, let's find out. This fight will take place in the Sendai colony. There is no specific reason, I just blabbed out something random. Same rules as always, whoever dies or gets knocked out first loses. So let's go and simulate the fight. Play the Budokai music. So the fight starts and Maki is already behind Mahito. That's a crazy blitz. The reason this would happen is because, well, Mahito without his final form is completely relative to Yuji in speed. The bad thing about this is that same Yuji, who's referred to as a demon god now, literally gets blitzed by Naoya, who's not even trying. So being charitable to Mahito, a Naoya who's actually trying would blitz Mahito in the same way. Maki before her second awakening is on par in speed with this. Naoya dies and turns into a curse, and now he's on a tier above that. Maki awakens again and surpasses that same tier. So in layman's terms, Mahito is slower than alive Naoya, who is slower than cursed Naoya, who is slower than Maki. If Maki was in this situation, Maki would blitz them, hit them about, give or take 400,000 times, and run back before Yuji could even turn around. And so if she could do that to Yuji, she's definitely doing that to Mahito. Now, earlier in the video, I talked about the only ways Mahito could actually take damage, and those were if the attacks targeted his soul or if the attack knew the shape of his soul. Well, Maki literally satisfies both of these conditions. Maki's sword Mai directly attacks the soul, and for that to even happen, Maki needs to perceive souls. So under normal circumstances, it's clear that Maki would just blitz and one-shot Mahito. But let's say Mahito survives a hit somehow, then transforms into his true form. What would happen? Well, not much. His speed should increase by 2 times since it's 200%, but Maki's still faster than this, as Naoya's speed exponentially increases, and 2 times multiplier is nothing compared to Naoya, who's actually going all out, making Mahito in his true form still tiers below them in speed. With all that said, it's the same outcome, blitz and then one shot. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I wanted to do another JJK versus battle, and I think this turned out great. This video came out later than expected because, as you can see, I lost my voice and I've been sick the entire week, bro. So, you know what I'm saying? But I'm still trying to get out videos, you know what I'm saying? I'm grinding. Anyways, if you enjoyed this video, consider leaving a like and subscribing. I'd really appreciate it. And I'll catch y'all in the next one.